Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today we will be continuing with my sketch and chat series where I pretty much just talk about whatever comes to mind, and overall we're just gonna have a good time for the next 20 or so minutes. I know I've mentioned that this is kind of a series, but I've realized that this is pretty much what I do for all of my videos, where I show my drawing process and then just kind of talk with you guys. So I might kind of stop calling it a series. I don't know. It might undergo some rebranding or renaming. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions or thoughts as to what I should call this, or if I should just be titling my videos based on whatever the visual content is, I guess we could do that as well. But anyways, that was a long aside. Hello, welcome. My name is Sheeny, and I am a intern resident physician by day, and then during my free time, I enjoy drawing and making content for you all here on YouTube. So thanks for joining me along on this art journey that I'm taking. I hope you enjoy your stay. Feel free to grab your sketchbook or something to work on, maybe a hot or cold drink of your choice, or maybe even food, since I know sometimes I enjoy eating lunch or dinner while watching a YouTube video. So whatever floats your boat, but I hope that we'll just have an enjoyable time together here for the next 20 or so minutes, and yeah, hopefully it'll just be either productive or just a good mental break, and just a rest from whatever might be going on with your life right now. But we're just gonna kind of take 20 minutes to just kind of de-stress and just kind of let that burden kind of be lifted a little bit, and hopefully we'll have a good time. So as usual with my videos, I don't really script anything, and especially with these sketch and chats, I usually don't really have anything particularly in mind to talk about, so we're just gonna go with whatever happens to pop into my mind, and hopefully that's okay. I guess I could always like edit things out or just like cue louder music if we come across awkward pauses. I'm not sure, but either way, we'll just go with the flow. I know it's been a while since I last did a video, and I think looking at my last upload, it's been about a month, and it's just, I don't know, I just feel like I've been really rusty with making videos, that or I'm just very burnt out from work, that I'm just not motivated or just not in the right mindset to be putting out new footage. So it's been a little bit hard on me from that standpoint. But I mean, things haven't been terribly busy. I did mention earlier that I'm kind of on a lighter rotation right now, and I've been able to kind of watch anime and kind of relax a little bit more compared to other times that I'm working at the hospital. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe with the holidays and kind of going from there, like I've just been so busy with work that I did go maybe like a month or so where I didn't really put out a lot of work. So like earlier this month, I wanted to like get back into making videos, but then like I just felt so rusty that like even drawing was like, whoa, this is weird. Like I haven't drawn in a really long time. So I was kind of just doodling in my sketchbook, and I didn't feel that the content, or I guess the stuff that I was drawing, would be interesting enough to film. So I've been drawing a lot in my sketchbook recently, but just haven't really been filming a lot of stuff just because I'm like, well, I don't know like if this is interesting stuff. And granted, like I know I should just film content that I enjoy, but at the same time there's a part of me that like enjoys filming content that I think you guys would enjoy, if that makes sense. So that's also why I haven't been putting out as much like videos as I would like. Also, I filmed this maybe like a week or a week and a half ago, and just now I'm starting to get around to the voiceover, and I feel like it's just because it's just been a very daunting thought on my to-do list, since after editing this video, I think the footage itself, it was like an hour and a half of recording, and then when I edited and did everything, I was able to parse it down to like about 23 minutes, and just the thought of having to record a voiceover for like over 20 minutes just seemed a bit overwhelming, especially because I haven't done this in a long time. So I was just like, man, I don't know what I'm gonna talk about. And I feel like a lot of the times, like, I'll stutter or like trip over my words, or I'll just blank out and just be like, I don't know what to say next. And so I would just stop and like re-record a bunch of times, and it would just get very frustrating. Like, I would spend a lot of time, and like my whole afternoon would kind of just go just from me attempting to try to get like the perfect voiceover. And I just was like not up for that, and so that's why I kind of put off doing this video. But this probably could have been uploaded like 2 weeks ago, so I apologize for that. And yeah, I mean, I'm trying to kind of be more loose with my voiceovers and just kind of throw it out the window, because sometimes when I'm listening to my previous videos or like my voiceovers, like it just sounds too scripted, like even though my stuff isn't scripted. But I think like if I have like recorded and re-recorded multiple times, I start getting an idea of like kind of what I want to say, and then it just doesn't feel as natural. So I'm gonna try really hard not to edit this voiceover too much, just hoping that it sounds more natural and more real with you guys, especially because that's kind of the purpose behind these sketch and chat videos, is that I want it to be more like relaxing and make it feel more like I'm having a conversation with you guys, rather than like putting out a video and like kind of presenting it, if that makes sense. So hopefully this makes it feel more homey, more cozy, more relaxing, more conversational, and overall just more natural. But definitely let me know what you guys think, if this style is kind of too weird for you guys, or if you prefer the more like polished voiceovers where I kind of edit out all of my awkward silences or my ums or like just unflattering things. So yeah, we're just gonna kind of let loose with it today and make it more of a like, hey, I'm kind of rusty, but I'm kind of slowly coming back to this, and just kind of want to talk to you guys like I would to a friend or just a close acquaintance, and just have a good time. So with that out of the way, I guess I could talk a little bit about this piece. So I know that watching the line art process may not be the most interesting thing, but I feel like because I've just been so out of it in terms of like filming and just like making art in general, I wanted to put out something that I was more comfortable with doing. And as I've previously mentioned in my other videos, I feel like line art is one of my fortes, and so it was kind of like a nice ease in back into kind of recording, since it's something that I'm more confident about compared to like when I do my kind of like coloring processes, because I feel like that can be very experimental, whereas like with the line art, it's like, okay, I'm very comfortable with this process, and chances are I'm not going to mess up so badly that I have to end up tossing all the footage. So hopefully you guys don't mind something that's more on the less like intricate side when it comes to like watching an art drawing process video. I did show some parts that were in real time, just to kind of show like how long it takes me to do the line art process, since I do like having a really like precise and defined line art style. So I have to be really deliberate with my lines and like where I put down the strokes and everything. So hopefully you guys are able to appreciate that by me kind of showing my real-time process. I did kind of focus more on like the hair and the face and like the eyes as like the real-time parts, and then kind of sped up the other parts that I felt were not as interesting to watch or just like kind of redundant. So hopefully that's okay with you guys, but definitely if you want to see like a full like start to finish like true real-time like line art process, I can go ahead and do that as well. But I mean, that would probably just be a much longer video, since like this one took me like an hour and a half to do, and then with the editing I was able to kind of parse it down. But definitely let me know, since I'm always open to your guys' feedback. And then I am using the Ohuhu Fineliner drawing pen for this piece. I have used this before in previous pieces, but I believe in my previous videos I'd mentioned how like I didn't have as much experience with these pens to really give like a good opinion about like kind of like my thoughts and impressions about using them. And now that I've used the pens for a few pieces, I feel like I could definitely give more insight in terms of like my experiences with working with these pens. So I guess it's now kind of like a mini review, or I guess just like my thoughts so far with using these pens. So first, I wanted to say that these pens are really good for their price. They are very affordable. So Ohuhu had launched this product a few months ago, and the price at the time I think is $10 on Amazon in US dollars, and I had bought these pens when they first launched, so they were doing like a $2 off promo, so that brought it down to about $8 for 8 pens. But even if you bought it at full price, like $10 for 10 pens is a really great price, especially because all the pens are different sizes. So you get 0.05 all the way up to 1.0, and then you also get a brush nib pen. And I feel like I continue to be very impressed with Ohuhu and their products. They do a really good job of making things very affordable, but also still really good quality, actually. I do have their alcohol markers, which I have featured in multiple videos in the past, and I continue to really enjoy using those alcohol markers. And then with these Fineliner pens, I've had a really good experience with them so far. So a little bit about kind of, I guess, like pros and cons. So I think the only con that I could think of so far with this pen is that I don't think it's the most like dark black color that I've worked with in a Fineliner. I don't really notice this issue with the smaller nib sizes, so like the 0.05, 0.1, and 0.2. But I found that like when I'm using the larger nib sizes, or even like their brush tip pen, it's almost like the ink dries to like a light, maybe like a lighter black, or almost like a dark grayish color. So I don't know if it's just like the formulation of their ink, but for me, like when I'm looking for a Fineliner, I like the really like dark and heavily pigmented ink, just because I feel like that's kind of like my art style. It's just very black and bold line art. But again, with the smaller nib sizes, I haven't really noticed that as an issue. It's just if you were to like color large areas using their Fineliners, you might not be able to achieve like a very dark black. But honestly, like that's the only con that I could think of. The other thing that comes to mind, which I'm not really sure if it's something to fault Ohuhu for, but I've mentioned before that I really enjoy using like the really small nib sizes, so like 0.05, especially because with my pieces I do very detailed work and I tend to work over like small areas. So I feel like it's definitely much more beneficial to have a very thin nib to be able to kind of like get all those small details without kind of like muddying all the lines together. And I tried using their 0.05 nib, and I think after like just lining one piece, the nib kind of deformed and it no longer was able to kind of achieve that really thin like line anymore. And I'm not sure if this is like something that's just with Ohuhu, because I have experienced this with pretty much every brand that I've tried with their 0.05 nibs, is that they just don't last that long and they get worn down very easily. And at this point, I'm wondering if it's just because like the nib is so small that it's like impossible to kind of manufacture a nib that's going to be able to like withstand multiple uses when it's just such a small tip. So I'd just say like that's something I've noticed with Ohuhu's Fineliners, but it's not something that's exclusive to Ohuhu. Like I've noticed it with all of my Fineliners. So just something to be aware of, that if you're looking for a sturdy 0.05 nib, the Ohuhu brand is not going to be able to give you that. But other than that, like I've been really happy with these Fineliners. They have pretty much been very sturdy. The barrel is very smooth, it's very comfortable to hold, and with the nibs, as I just mentioned, they're very sturdy. And I feel like even though I'm not very heavy-handed, there are some times when I put a little bit more pressure when I'm doing the strokes or the lines, and well, I guess not really surprisingly, but pleasantly been surprised that the nib hasn't really deformed that much. And I've mostly been sticking to using like the 0.1 for all of my line arting, and the nib has held up pretty well. So I've been very happy with it. And overall, I would say that I do recommend these Fineliners if you're looking for especially like a very affordable option, and there are a lot of different sizes. You get 8 pens for $10, and another bonus noticed is that these are waterproof, so I feel like sometimes it can be difficult finding waterproof ink at a price that's like this affordable. So if you're looking for high value waterproof drawing pens for your line art work, I would definitely recommend these pens. And then just keeping in mind that the black pigment may not be as dark as you may want it to be, especially if you're using the larger sizes. So that's kind of like my mini review. So yeah, and also I do want to mention, as I had previously stated, I bought these with my own money, and Ohuhu is not sponsoring me or anything to kind of talk about their pens. I think this was just something that I was like, hey, in this video I'm using the Ohuhu pens, so might as well just talk about them now that I've used them enough to kind of have a better idea and kind of give better insight as to kind of my experience with working with them. So hopefully that was helpful. So yeah, so that's pretty much everything I could think of in terms of that. I guess going back to the piece itself, so right now you see me using the Pentel Aquash brush pen, just coloring in the hair. I did want to add kind of more like pop by adding to the line art and kind of coloring in the darker areas. So I initially used acrylic ink for kind of like that chest like armor vest thing of Hero's uniform, and my acrylic ink, I had initially bought it so that I could cover large areas without having to use like a fine liner, and I could just like paint the area for more uniformity of like the dark black coloring. And I actually overestimated the amount that I had to dilute it, because it is like a pure black color and I didn't want it to kind of like obscure the details that I had drawn using the fine liner. So I added some water, just a few drops of water to the well, and it just diluted the ink so much to the extent that it turned out to be like pretty much the same tone as the Pentel Aquash pen, which was not what I was going for, because I already planned to color like the hair and like the majority of the uniform with the Pentel Aquash, but the vest part of the uniform is like a true black, and so I was like, oh, maybe I'll just use like the acrylic ink to get like a darker tone compared to the Pentel Aquash pen, and it kind of backfired on me because I over diluted it. I guess I could have added more acrylic ink, but at that time I feel like I would have just wasted more of the ink than what it would have been worth to try to salvage it. So that was kind of a wasted effort. So you will see later on that I go over the vest part with the Aquash pen to just achieve a darker tone. So if you're wondering kind of why I laid down some acrylic ink and then went over it with Aquash, that was not intentional. I just ended up doing really bad with guessing how much I had to dilute the ink to make it not as dark of a black. So there's that. I guess I could now talk about my thoughts on the anime. So as I had mentioned at the start of this video, so I was drawing Hero from Darling in the Franxx. He is the male protagonist of the series, and I've been aware of this series for some time now. I would say I definitely recognize 02, who's the female protagonist, and surprisingly, like, I didn't watch it until now, and I guess I just wasn't really like interested, or like I don't know, like I wasn't pressed to watch this series when it first came out. And then recently, like, I don't know how this came about, but I found out that Studio Trigger was involved in the production of the series, and I love Studio Trigger. Their other series that they have done, Kill la Kill, is one of my absolute favorite animes of all time. And then they also put out the anime movie Promare, which I also really enjoyed. So when I found out that Studio Trigger had kind of helped create Darling in the Franxx, I was like, oh my gosh, of course I have to watch it because it's going to be really good. So I decided to binge watch it a few weeks ago, I believe, and finished it in like 2 or 3 days. And I don't know, like, I really enjoyed watching it, and I was very satisfied with the ending. But the weird thing is, like, if you were to ask me, like, what I liked about the series, like, I just don't know. Like, there's not really much that I could pick out apart from maybe just the appreciation of the growth and the development that the characters go through, and there's definitely like a coming of age aspect to the series, which I think was really nice to see throughout from like the start to the end. But like other than that, like there really wasn't anything that like comes to mind as to like why I enjoyed the series so much. And I just feel like it's strange because like if you were to ask me what I liked about Kill la Kill, I could definitely go off about everything that I liked about the series and what I thought was really well done. But for Darling in the Franxx, there really wasn't anything besides like, oh, I liked seeing the growth and development and the coming of age of these characters from episode 1 all the way to the end. I know some people were not happy with the ending. They felt like it was really rushed near the second half of the series, and I could definitely see how people would really dislike that. But for me, like, I feel like that's a very Studio Trigger-esque style of storytelling where like the first half of the series, it's a very steady pace. You're kind of learning the plot and the world and the characters and all of that, and then suddenly there's a major plot twist, and then like things go from like 0 to 100 like really quick from that point to the rest of the series. And so I could see why some people felt that it was really rushed, but for me that was kind of like, well, that's very typical of Studio Trigger, so it wasn't anything that kind of like ruined the series for me. Like I still really enjoyed it, and again, I don't know if it's just because I'm used to Studio Trigger style, so it was something that was just expected. But yeah, I mean, I still enjoyed the series. In terms of like rewatchability, I don't know if I would rewatch it. Like again, there really wasn't anything about the series that kind of jumped out to me as to like what made the series so good and so enjoyable. Maybe it was just because I was bored and had some free time and it was Studio Trigger, so maybe there was that bias where I just enjoyed watching another anime from Studio Trigger. I don't know. But I mean, I still enjoyed the series, and at the end, like, I feel like I was very satisfied with the ending and overall just like had a really good time. So that was kind of like my thoughts on that series. But yeah, and I guess at this point we're kind of nearing the end of the video. So again, hopefully this style of voiceover wasn't too bad. I mean, I'm just slowly trying to get back into filming and creating good content for you guys, but I hope you guys enjoyed your time working with me, especially if you made it this far. Definitely tag me on social media, either Instagram or Twitter, if you were working on something or if you drew something along with me, since I would love to see what you guys worked on during this time. And I hope that you guys continue to stay healthy, stay safe, and I will see you in the next video.